Welcome to PowerTracks Pro Audio 8. This video is your introduction to the more than 30 new features in this popular digital audio and MIDI sequencing program. We recommend that you maximize your viewer window to watch this video. Use the keystrokes Alt and Enter for full screen mode in most players. PowerTracks Pro Audio 8 is a new 32-bit program that ensures smooth operation in the latest Windows operating systems. You'll see some of its new features as soon as you launch the program. For example, there are new buttons for direct access to all of the PowerTracks Pro Audio windows, including the new Chords window, which we'll describe in detail later. And any window can be opened with a hotkey combination of the Control key plus its number in the window list. So Control 1 will take us back to the Tracks window. Here's a handy readout that tells how much space is available on your hard drive. That's especially helpful when you're working with large digital audio files. With the big sizable piano option selected in the piano settings, it's easy to follow notes on the scalable piano keyboard as the tracks play. In this piano settings dialog, we can set the height of the keyboard and choose how many octaves to display. The big piano size can also be set by dragging the lower edge of the keyboard. The addition of real-time DirectX audio effects gives the mixer window a new look. Yes, effects such as echo, chorus, reverb, compression can be applied to the audio tracks without altering the actual contents of the tracks. There are two auxiliary effects buses in the mixer window. Each allows a chain of up to 4 effects. You can also apply effects to individual tracks by using the track inserts. Again, you can chain up to 4 real-time effects per track. And effects can be applied globally to the final stereo mix with the output insert for the audio port. We'll look at these features in more detail shortly. Let's load a MIDI file using the new Custom File Selection dialog. The Font Selection button lets us select any installed font, any style, and any size for the file dialog. The Favorites button lets you quickly select from the previous folders that files have been loaded from. The last 25 folders are remembered. Use the Find button to look for a file within the current folder. For example, the file we want has the word MIDI in its name. PowerTracks Pro Audio is offering to interpret the chord symbols for the file just loaded. When we load in any MIDI file, PowerTracks sequence file, or even a work in progress, the amazing Chord wizard will intelligently figure out the chords and display them in both the Chords window and the Notation window. Chord symbols are an essential component of playing by ear, so most musicians who play by ear should find this new feature indispensable. In this case, we've set the Chord window options to Ask First so that we can have a closer look at this amazing feature before it interprets the chords. Now you can open the Chords window by clicking on the minimized window at the bottom of your screen with the keystrokes Control 3 or with the Chord button in the toolbar. And if you're familiar with Band in a Box, you'll recognize the layout of the Chords window. The Chords window Options dialog is where we chose the Ask First setting. Change this to Always, and chords will be interpreted automatically every time you load a song. Or choose Never to load files without interpreting the chords. The new Chords window displays the chords in a selectable font, style, and size. And you can choose the number of bars per line and the number of lines per screen. With the Auto Chord Wizard, you can interpret the chords for the entire song or for any section of the song that you've highlighted in the Chords window. This is helpful to reinterpret a few bars. The Custom Chord Wizard settings provide direct access to the Chord Wizard to choose how it will interpret the chords. Notice that the Chord Wizard has identified the key of the song. Now let's look at the default presets to see how the chords are interpreted. The chord resolution defaults to 2 beats as the minimum number of beats for a chord. This could be set as low as 1 beat or as high as 8 bars. The default setting allows some slash chords to be included, but we could set this for no slash chords or to allow lots of slash chords. The bass part type is set to walking bass, so the Chord Wizard will assume that the bass notes can be changing and can include many notes beside the root. Setting the walking bass line will likely result in fewer chords overall. If you choose root only, the Chord Wizard will assume that any bass note is the root of the chord. Or choosing root 3, 5 will cause the Chord Wizard to assume that the bass pattern is mainly on the root, 3rd, and 5th of the chord. The setting for Allow Sus Chords determines if suspended chords will be included, and the Allow 7th chord specifies if 7th chords will be allowed. Allowing chords with no thirds should be set in a hard rock song or similar song with power chords that might not contain the third of the chords. Now usually a bass player plays the root of the chord at or near the time when the chord changes, but in solo piano playing or some bass styles, the bass doesn't state the root until later on, and this setting should then be set to delayed. And you can also set the primary style of the song to jazz or pop country using this lead sheet method combo box. Remember that you can change any of the settings used in these presets or choose your own settings. Now let's look at another preset, Pop Ballad. The chord resolution has stayed at 2 beats, but now we're allowing lots of slash chords, and the wizard will interpret the bass part as playing roots. Suspended chords are allowed, and 7th chords are allowed. Now we'll click on OK, and the Chord Wizard will interpret the chords. Once you've used this feature, you'll wonder how you ever managed without it. The Chords window displays the chord symbols of a song in rows of numbered bars. You don't always have to use the Chord Wizard to enter chords. You can type them in using regular chord symbols. Each measure is divided into beat groups of 2 beats. So if a song is in 4/4 time, then each measure will contain 2 beat groups. The current beat group will have a rectangle drawn around it. The left and right arrow keys let you move the input rectangle to a different beat group without entering chords, or you can also click the mouse on a different beat group to move the input rectangle to a new location. Highlight a range of cells for editing by clicking inside of a bar and then dragging the mouse to the inside of another bar. This will select all the tracks of the song for editing. You can cut and paste sections of the song by using the Edit Cut or Edit Copy commands and the Edit Paste command. Note that PowerTracks Pro Audio 8 can copy and paste chord symbols. We can press the loop button and PowerTracks will play the highlighted section in an endless loop. Or if no section is highlighted, then the entire song will be looped. The Chords window also has part markers compatible with Band in a Box, so that you can easily mark the sections of your song as A or B. If you click directly on a bar number, the number will change into a part marker. Well, it's great to load MIDI or karaoke files into PowerTracks Pro Audio and play along with them or record additional tracks of your own. And it's so much easier to play along when you can follow the changes in the chords window. With PowerTracks Pro Audio 8, you'll never guess at the chord changes again. And the Chord Wizard also writes the chord symbols into the notation window, and there's lots more to see in both the regular and the lead sheet notation for PowerTracks Pro Audio 8. In the notation options, choose the Jazz Music font to give the on-screen display and your printed charts the handwritten look of a jazz lead sheet. Select alternate fonts for the lyrics. For the chord symbols and the song titles. Resize them if you wish. For example, we'd like to see larger chord symbols. Click on OK, and the notation has a whole new look. PowerTracks Pro Audio 8 automatically draws slanted beams in the notation, indicating whether the general direction of a phrase is up or down in pitch. The Section Text button lets you place a text event at any place in the notation. In the Editable Notation mode, right-click with the mouse any place in the notation to enter a text event at that spot. For example, we might want to type in the track name. There's a choice of regular text or box text. The Scrub Mode button in the notation window will let you play the notes in the song as you drag the mouse horizontally over the window. This is helpful for learning tricky parts or for examining recorded tracks for glitches or wrong notes. Now you'll notice that the mouse cursor changes to a speaker icon in Scrub Mode. Click and hold the left mouse button while dragging the mouse cursor over the notes. And click the Scrub button again when you're ready to disable Scrub Mode. The lead sheet window can display notation for multiple tracks at the same time. In the lead sheet options, select the tracks that you want to display. Also choose which clefs you want to see, and you could optionally view guitar tablature. PowerTracks Pro Audio will also print notation with multiple tracks, so you could print a chart like this for a soloist and their accompanist. When the Big Lyrics window reaches a part of the song that has chords but no lyrics, such as an instrumental break, the Big Lyrics window will display the chords in a row of measures, with each row being equal to the current bars per line setting. This automatic feature keeps the chord display organized and easy to follow. Clicking on a lyric or a chord symbol in the Big Lyrics window will start the song from the location of the lyric or chord that you click on. PowerTracks Pro Audio 8 has many advanced features for recording, editing, and producing digital audio tracks. The VU meters have an automatic peak hold feature with gradual peak fallback, so it's easy to see the transient peak levels. There's a clipping indicator at the top of the meters to indicate that clipping has occurred, which means that your levels are set too high. PowerTracks Pro Audio supports real-time DirectX effects on its audio tracks and comes with a great selection of effects from PG Music. These are non-destructive effects that can be applied without altering the source content of the audio tracks. The mixer window has provisions for up to 16 effects per track. Each audio track has its own track insert for a chain of up to 4 effects. There are 2 auxiliary buses, each of which also allows a chain of up to 4 effects. And there's an output insert which lets you add 4 more effects to the signal for the audio output port. We can listen to a MIDI file and then render it to an audio file and apply PG Music's non-destructive DirectX effects. Here's the source MIDI file. We've already rendered the MIDI tracks to audio tracks in PowerTracks Pro Audio. The audio tracks are on mixer channels 11 through 16. The MIDI tracks have been muted. Before we begin to process effects, here's a quick overview of how they're commonly used. The track inserts are for specific effects for a particular track. We've added the PG flanger effect to the harmonica melody to simulate the vibrato of a live performer. The auxiliary buses are where we'll make corrections to the sound and add different amounts of effects to different tracks. We can use each auxiliary bus independently for its own effect. PowerTracks Pro Audio allows up to 4 effects to be assigned to each bus. And for convenience, we can save groups of effects and then load them easily. Once all the settings have been adjusted, we can save them as a preset. Here's how the effects will be used. PG Dynamics will correct imbalances in the original track and remove unwanted sounds like hiss or background noise. PG 10 band EQ is used to adjust the balance between 10 fixed frequency bands, a more sophisticated version of adjusting the bass and treble. PG Echo Chorus combines both of these effects for a richer, more interesting sound. Large amounts can be added for special effects. PG Reverb adds the reverberations of a live setting to the sound. The effect could range from the large, warm reverberations of a concert hall to the short reflections heard when singing in the shower. In the output group, we've used the PG 5-band EQ for broader equalization of the final output. These settings are like the EQ faders found on many stereo systems. And we can also apply reverb to the final output to blend and put a finish on the final mix. Finally, PG Peak Limit prevents the sound level from becoming too loud and causing distortion or clipping. It operates as a safety mechanism that turns down the volume before it causes any problems. Now there's detailed online documentation for all of these effects so that you can find out how to use them to create the sound that you want. Now notice that just because an effect is available in a group, it needn't necessarily be used. Any effect can be bypassed. The amount of effect on an individual track is controlled by the aux1 and aux2 controls. The send controls on the 2 auxiliary buses control the amount of the signal that is directed through the bus for processing. And the returns determine the amount of the processed sound that is sent to the audio output for the final mix. We'll start by listening to our audio tracks with all of the effects bypassed. The first thing we'll do is adjust the levels on the individual instrument tracks for the balance we want. And because tracks 13 and 14 are both acoustic guitars, we'll pan them left and right for separation. Placing the cursor on the FX button on each track will show what effects, if any, have been inserted into just that track. Track 13 is using the 10-band EQ that's on the acoustic nylon guitar to give it a bit more clarity and definition just for this particular track. And we've now enabled that effect. Channel 16, which is the harmonica melody, has a PG flanger effect for a subtle vibrato. Because our original recording was rendered from a MIDI file, the tracks are clean and well balanced. So at this stage, we don't need to enable PG Dynamics, and it's worth remembering that while these effects enhance your final production, they work best if the tracks are well recorded in the first place. We will enable the PG 10-band EQ on both auxiliary buses, but for the moment we'll leave it set flat, which means that it's not active. we might find that we want to make some adjustments after we've added other effects. On Auxiliary 1, we'll enable the Echo Chorus and use it to fatten up the sounds of the strings and the guitars. Our strings are on track 15, and now we're running that through Auxiliary 1, and not so much of the two guitar tracks. And if we solo the strings track, we can hear what this effect does. So this is with the effect. Now we're bypassing the effect. And hear how the strings now don't sound as vibrant and rich. And we'll enable the effect again. Now we're going to use Auxiliary 2 to add reverb to the melody track. So we'll enable a reverb, and we've got a fairly large reverb setting on. So it's in effect is a special effect for this track. So we'll send that through Auxiliary 2 at a pretty high level. And actually, we've also set up a fairly large echo on this bus. So this bus is becoming more special effects. And they're being applied to track 16, which is our melody. Now we can apply some overall effects to the final audio output. We'll engage PG Dynamics to correct any imbalances that we've introduced with our other edits. And we'll add a small amount of reverb to blend the instruments as they'd sound in a live venue. And finally, we're going to engage PG Peak Limit and we could use its pre-gain setting to increase the overall level of the final mix without clipping or distortion. Now, just for comparison, here's what our original file sounded like. And again, here's our final mix. Now, of course, we could spend lots more time tweaking this mix, and you might treat it in a completely different way. The great thing is that PowerTracks Pro Audio 8 gives you the tools to do just that, and to produce a terrific final mix just the way you want it. PowerTracks Pro Audio 8 can record mixer moves, and mixes can be automated using MIDI controller events in the event list for the track. Here's an example with the melody track of our demonstration song. The event list shows the controller 7 events, which is the volume control. Now watch the volume fader for track 16 as the song plays. The Options Preferences menu item launches a dialog with tabbed pages to give easy access to user preferences. We'll find several more new PowerTracks Pro Audio features here. Who hasn't been thankful for the ability to undo an edit and start again? With PowerTracks Pro Audio, you can do it 100 times over. You can adjust the number of undo levels in the general section of the Preferences dialog. By default, this is set to 5 levels of undo. You could increase this to as high as 100 or as low as 1. You can adjust the undo warning message threshold. In the audio preferences, the driver's setup, you can now use the Move Selected Devices to Top button to change the order of the audio drivers to your preference rather than the default ordering determined by the operating system. The Output Buffer Millisecond setting lets you precisely adjust the output buffer duration in milliseconds. Higher settings avoid dropouts or clicks, but slow down the response to mixer moves. The default buffer settings shipped with PowerTracks Pro Audio are a good selection to make sure that playback will not stutter on slower computers. But with long audio buffer settings, it can take a while to hear the effect of mixer changes or DirectX edits during playback. Most users can reduce the track buffer size and the output buffer without risking dropouts or audio stuttering. This makes mixer and DirectX edits happen much quicker. The Audio Input-Output Thread setting gives you 3 different choices regarding the execution thread for audio playback and recording: main thread, discrete thread normal priority, and discrete thread high priority. When set to use the main thread, the audio input-output uses the program's main execution thread rather than multitasking. When set to discrete thread, it uses a separate execution thread for the audio playback, which makes it less likely that there will be an audio dropout in certain situations, such as when small buffer size settings were selected by the user. Another new feature of PowerTracks Pro Audio 8 is that the Load Scrap command can now load audio tracks into the scrap buffer so that they can be pasted into the current song. In the File Preferences, there's now a setting to automatically rechannel track data when saving to a MIDI file. If you enable this setting, PowerTracks Pro Audio will automatically ask you if you want to rechannel the track data to the forced MIDI channels in the Tracks view. This is now the place to see all of the Big Lyrics window options and make your settings. Song playback can now be started by clicking on any word or chord symbol in the Big Lyrics window, assuming that you have the display chord symbol setting checked. All of the notation, print, and lead sheet options are now accessible from this page in the Preferences dialog, including the track selection to display and print multiple tracks in the lead sheet window. Now, as in the audio options, the Move Selected Devices to Top button in the MIDI driver setup lets you adjust the order of the MIDI output ports. The new Audio Input-Output Delay setting will delay the start of audio playback and audio recording, which is useful if you want to attempt to keep audio playback and recording in sync with a software-based synthesizer for MIDI playback. Normally, you'll set this to match the Synth Output Latency Delay setting. Back in the Tracks window, PowerTracks Pro Audio 8 supports stereo or mono audio tracks. Any of the 48 tracks within PowerTracks can now be designated as either a mono or stereo audio track just by clicking in the TY field, the type field, in the Tracks window. Stereo tracks are just a more convenient way to record in stereo. They contain both a left and a right channel, and although you can pan them left or right in the mixer window, they would normally be centered to hear both stereo channels. We've loaded our demo song to illustrate a stereo track. If you edit a stereo track, you'll see 2 channels in the Audio Edit window. With its new 32-bit engine for smooth Windows operation, the amazing new Chord wizard, exciting real-time audio effects and advanced effects routing, the new Chord window for easy sight reading, great notation and lyrics, and dozens of other features for fun and convenience, PowerTracks Pro Audio 8 turns your computer into a music production powerhouse. Have fun.